So this is the shot that we've been working on. Keep in mind there's no hand or face animation. We might do some today, we'll see. But it's mostly the body mechanics. So we've got this. There's just this kind of simple character getting excited and kind of punching the air. Now, last time we got the shot all into splines and we refined and cleaned up the head, the arms, the body, the hips, all of that. We've got it pretty much in a solid spot. It works. Is it the greatest? No, it could definitely be way better, but it's not bad and it works. So at this point, what can we do? What can we do to make this better? How can we make it stand out? How can we make it just more interesting or add that extra little bit to it? So for me, there's a few different ways I will approach this. One of the first things is I will do master studies. I'm not going to do this on the stream here just because it takes time. But I will look at shots that are similar to the one I'm animating. So something like this, I might just look for some shots of characters punching or some really excited characters. And I'll look at the little details that they add in. If you're doing a sad scene, look at sad scenes from films and from animated projects and look at that. Do master studies because that's going to teach you what to put in, what they are already putting in that you might be missing. That's one of the quickest ways to learn and to improve in that area. Now, let's say you've done that. Now we've looked in our shot and, okay, what else can we improve? Well, what I try to do is a few different things. The main thing is I want to see my shot in a new light. And it's not so much kind of trying to find mistakes, but seeing where areas might not be as interesting, or as I'm looking at it, it just kind of, I feel like it could be plussed. So, a few ways I like to do this is if you've got a video player like Keyframe MP, which I have here, or Keyframe Pro, you can just flip the video. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to flip that horizontally. And now we get a different idea of how that works. And we just kind of refresh our brain a little bit. And already just by doing this, my eye kind of got stuck. Where was it here? My eye caught something. Right here. See this elbow? It bounces 90 degrees right there. Right there. See how that it kind of arcs up and then does that? So this is just one of those things where I looked at this morning, I didn't see it. The moment I flipped it, I was like, oh wait, there's something weird with that elbow. So yeah, it's flipping the view helps you refresh your eyes and just kind of get a better idea of how things are working. I'm also kind of feeling like as I'm looking at this, as his arm comes back here, there's something going on right in here. And I think part of it is as it goes forward, this bend right here feels too locked off and it makes the whole arm, like as it's dragging back here, see that drag right there? It makes the whole arm just feel like a static piece that's just kind of doing this. It makes it feel like an action figure instead of an arm that has bones and ligaments and has musculature that can flex. It's just kind of staying perfectly still. So that's another area that my eyes just catch onto. I'm just kind of letting my eyes drift over the shot, not looking at anything specific and seeing if anything kind of just stands out. Another area that I feel like is standing out is this knee right here. It goes up and it just kind of bounces straight back down. I think that could be exaggerated a little bit more. Okay. So we can do this. Another thing I like to do is take your shot and make it really small. So just make it very small on screen and watch it on a smaller size. See what details stand out. When you have it at especially a small size, your eyes are going to fall onto different details and not just kind of stick to the big ones that we normally see, especially when we're working on a big screen or a bigger screen. So we can do that. Another thing I'll do is I'll squint my eyes as I'm looking at it and just try to get just a blur over the screen. You can also do this in like a video player, just add like a Gaussian blur over top of the video if you want to do that, or just squint. Squinting's faster. And you just kind of look at it with just just so you can see the form of it. And if you do that, other details will start to come out. You'll see areas that might be kind of getting lost or that don't read quite as clearly. So I definitely recommend all of these. Now, with all of that, this is kind of great ways to find errors. So areas that you might have missed out on and could be refined a little bit more, which is great. That's the whole point of refinement, is we want to find these areas and plus them more and more and more. The problem though is this is still not quite pushing our shot to that next level. It's fixing a lot of the stuff that's there, which technically isn't putting it to the next level. But once we do that, what else can we add? What can we keep putting into our shot to make it better and better and better? So we'll go into that next, but I see that the chat is having an awesome talk about tablets, so I do want to chime in there because it is a good topic. So there's a question here. Let's see. Do you think it's good to immediately practice animation with a tablet? And if so, do you recommend one that is not too expensive? So you do not need to work with a tablet right away. When I started animating, I used a mouse for the first 3 months, approximately, even though I did have a tablet. With that said, I will say that a tablet is much better for your health. So the sooner you can get it, the better. But it's not a necessity. I know a lot of animators who still animate with a mouse, and they've been doing that their whole career. It's personal preference, really. The main thing with a tablet is going to help you avoid repetitive strain injury in your wrist, which is a plus. And it, at least to me, it feels more comfortable and becomes a little easier to do certain things. So for example, when I'm working with a tablet, if I'm doing something like this and I need to do a draw over, well, drawovers are much easier with a tablet than a mouse. If you've ever tried to draw with a mouse, that's a pain. So even if you don't have the greatest drawing skills, it just helps. Now, in terms of tablets that you can get for inexpensive tablets, you don't have to get the most expensive. You don't have to get a Cintiq. So for example, I have a Cintiq right there. I never use it for animation. I just don't. I personally find screen tablets, so Cintiqs, things like that, they get in my way when I'm trying to animate because my hand is literally in front of the screen. That's just a personal thing. But I know a lot of animators who are like that as well, where they invested in this big expensive tablet and then they just stop using it because they hate the fact that their arm is always in the way. So do you need a screen tablet? No. I would actually recommend not starting with that, especially if you're new to it. It's a bigger cost, and if you're not sure if it's going to work or not, it's not worth it. So instead, I personally like to use just a regular, just a tablet. And in terms of the pricing, you can get some from XP Pen. I don't know if Huion has any just regular tablets. I believe they have mostly screen tablets, or Wacom. They're all pretty good. Wacom is kind of the leader of the tablets. They're kind of the industry standard as well. They're just really, really good. Now, the other products are really good as well. Unfortunately, I've never used them, so I can't kind of attest to the quality in comparison to a Wacom. But it's, as long as you look at the reviews, like, you're gonna get a good stuff. Just make sure you make your research and look for your price range. And this goes with Wacom as well. Wacom, as much as it's like a fantastic brand, there were some products that they released that were not so great. So you always want to do your research regardless. Now, the main suggestion I would have if you are getting a tablet is just making sure the size is correct. So for the size, they have a lot of different sizes. The big thing I would recommend is not going for the small ones, the very small tablets. So this is my tablet here. You can see the size of it. It's 16 by 11, I think it is, the actual size of the whole thing. But you can see the size of the screen area, or the drawing area, is not huge, but it's not tiny. The problem with getting small screen areas is that it means every motion is going to move a lot further on screen. So if I move my mouse here on the screen here, if the tablet was smaller, a little shake of the hand would move that cursor a lot further. The bigger the tablet, the more you can have very precise and small movements, which is great for detail work. Now, with that said, you don't want to get a huge tablet because they're more expensive and you tend to run out of desk space. Desk space, that's the word I'm looking for. And in general, it just makes it hard because then when you do have to go to the edge of the screen, it's just big arm motions all the time, which is tiring. So the mid-range tablets I find are usually pretty good. They give you that nice balance. Small enough that it's easy to move around in, but large enough that you're not losing out on all the fine detail. So the big thing is it's more of the size of the tablet versus the brand or the features of it. So there's pressure levels, and a lot of times they are trying to sell like, oh, this tablet has 5,000 pressure levels, this tablet has 2,000 pressure levels, and so on and so forth. Honestly, after a certain point, it really doesn't matter too much unless you're doing fine art. And what I mean by that is like you're drawing and you need to get every little inch of pressure in there. Animation, we don't do this. Not even in 2D animation do you need all those pressure levels. It doesn't really matter. So if the tablet is a lower model and has less features, the big thing we need is simply to be able to draw. And even if it had one pressure level and nothing else, it would still be better than a mouse. So pressure levels is really great for, sculpting or really fine art. Animation, not necessary. So it's something that for us as animators, it's not kind of a selling feature. You also have like all of the express keys and hotkeys on the sides or all the buttons. I will say that when I'm animating, even when I'm drawing or sculpting, I never use any express keys or hotkeys. Now, this is a personal preference. I won't say that everyone's going to be like this, but at least for me, it's not a selling feature because I literally have my keyboard right there. So why would I set up all my hotkeys on the tablet when I've got the keyboard there that can hit every hotkey that I need, and I don't have to do any setup for it, and I'm already used to it. And then if I get a new program, I don't have to reset up my tablet for each new program. Again, personal preference. I know some people who they can't live without setting up the hotkeys for whatever programs they use. For me, not a selling feature. So if it's, again, a lower model and doesn't have all these, not a big deal. So it's really just about making sure it's cost effective for you, for your budget, making sure the size is large enough that you're going to not deal with like moving your arm too much. Like this Cintiq, as much as I love it, I kind of wish I'd gotten a smaller size. This is the 24-inch Cintiq. And I do love it, especially when you're doing detail work for sculpting. But when you're trying to just move around menus, you notice after a while, like you're doing this a lot. And it gets very tiring, especially like that top left corner for me because I'm right-handed. It's just like, oh, is always like try to reach over, especially after like a few hours of drawing or sculpting. It's just gets tiring. Smaller screen would have been much easier, and you can always zoom in to get the details. So a large size is not great. Like it's not a huge bonus unless you're doing like architectural work or like really high detail. Like you need to see every pore and every like brush stroke in super fine detail. So yeah, the big thing is don't go too small either. If it's too small and like you have some tablets where it's basically just a little pad, I'm not a fan of those because it's just not enough range of motion that you can move things easily, especially in animation. Sometimes we want to make just minor, tiny little changes. And then there's a question here. Where do you set up the tablet? Right in front of you? Right in front of the screen or to the side? It depends on... It really depends on you. Some people, I know, they have their tablet to the side and they'll look forward, but they're drawing kind of... So they're looking forward and they're drawing off to the side. My tablet is kind of right in front of my monitor, so as I'm looking forward, I'm drawing with my hand. It's kind of like slightly offset to the right because, again, I'm right-handed. So it just kind of gives me better space. So it really is up to you, what you feel comfortable. Now, another thing that can help with this is with a tablet, by default, it's flat, whereas a monitor is at an angle. So a tablet sits flat on your desk. This monitor here, I'm going to move away from the mic just to show this. You can tilt it. So I can tilt it up like that, tilt it down. I've got range of motion, so I could put it up straighter. I can put it flatter. I can even bring it down if I wanted to. That's great because I can adjust it based on what I feel comfortable drawing at. The desk tablets don't usually... Okay, you can still hear me? Okay, fine. And Carrie, hello! It's been ages! But desk tablets don't really have that feature. They don't usually have feet under them that you can put them at an angle. Some do, which is really cool. Most don't. So for example, you'll see here, this is my tablet. The bottom is all scuffed up. Look at all those scratches. This tablet is 16 years old and it's still working fantastically. It lost one of its little rubber feet though. Or actually two. It lost 2 rubber feet. Oh no. But with this tablet, there's nothing underneath. It's just flat. Which means that when you're drawing, it's flat on the desk and you're trying to draw like this. Which, not quite like this. Your elbow's not quite so high. But it's not a super comfortable angle unless you're used to like drawing on paper and just like flat surface. For me, for a long time, this is how I would work. And I found when I was animating, my wrist would start to hurt after a while, just because you're holding the pen and you're dragging your arm across the surface. Because of it, it's flat, your hand automatically wants to set down. So what I ended up doing is I just put a box behind the tablet, just a box about that high, with a little bit of a rubber pad over top and down to the bottom, so I can set the tablet up like this. So my tablet actually sits at an angle like this as I work. And what that means is that as I'm drawing, you can see that my hand, aside from my pinky, never rests on the tablet. I'm not doing this. My hand is up, which means it's easier to draw from the shoulder, which is better and healthier for you than doing wrist motions. And it makes it less like dragging across the surface. And for me, just that little bit of an angle makes all the difference. I used to not... It's not that I didn't like using the tablet, but it was kind of like, I would use the mouse on and off because the tablet is like... It wasn't super comfortable. Just getting that angle right, and it took a while to find the right angle. Suddenly this tablet is so comfortable to use. I just like automatically go to it right away. And it's just the pinky, especially if you can get one of these gloves, your hand just slides across and it just feels really, really good to work with this tablet now. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. again, the brand, it doesn't really matter. I'm a Wacom person. Like you can see, I got a Cintiq. I've got a Intuos tablet here. Cameron's got a Cintiq. He's got a few different Intuos tablets that we got over the years. We like Wacom. To be fair, that's because when we started out, they were the only brand. That was it. You only had them. So we never tried anything else. But nowadays you've got all of these other brands, and as long as you do your research and get like one that's well rated and make sure it works with your operating system, all of that stuff, you're gonna be in a good place. So it's mostly about your budget, and if it's for animation, don't worry about all the bells and whistles and really cool, like, oh look, we've got 20 express keys versus our competitor that only has 12. Haha. But I'm not gonna use them. So what good is it to have more express keys that are just going to sit there and do nothing? Yeah, hopefully that helps. And let's see, Greg, hello, how's it going? And what advice would you give to a college student who wants to focus on 3D animation discipline? There's a lot of different things I could recommend. It depends on what specifically you're looking for. So in terms of 3D animation discipline, as in like just making sure that you are working and like trying to learn animation and keep pushing yourself to do it, the big thing is setting up a schedule, making sure that you stick to some sort of learning curriculum, even if you're on your own. So if you're learning on your own and you kind of want to progress with something, it helps to set up a curriculum for yourself. Set deadlines, set like certain days where you're going to try to do certain things. So just like how you would have classes on certain days, don't want to hit my mic there. On certain days, you make sure that, okay, today I'm going to do master studies. Today, this is the day that I'm going to go through and I'm just going to watch a film and I'm going to study a scene. Another day, today is the day that I'm going to do gesture drawing and I'm going to focus on understanding how to capture a gesture. Then maybe on the weekend you spend a certain amount of time each day animating and actually trying to get certain things done. And you set goals, very specific goals for yourself. And these goals aren't just get better, because that never ends. You want to set specific goals. So I want to understand the bouncing ball. I want to understand the 12 principles of animation. And this goes for anyone at any stage, not just starting out, but at any stage. This is what's going to help you keep progressing and getting better and better. If you are simply just animating just to animate or drawing or sculpting or whatever, and you're just doing it just for the sake of doing it, you're going to get better, yes, but you're not going to progress as quickly. And the big thing is getting that discipline in there, making sure that you do it. If you don't do it, you're not going to get better. So I hope that answers the question. If there's anything specific on any of that or on something else that you'd like to know, definitely feel free to ask. And Wildheart, I'm working on a stepped 2's animation. Can you please give me some tips? I'm always stuck with movement I have to give. So when you're working on 2's, we actually talked about this yesterday. No, not yesterday, last stream. Yesterday was a different class. When you're working on 2's, there's a few different ways you can approach it. So the first way is that you just animate everything down to 2's. So you start in step mode and you just keep breaking it down until you have 2's, which is great. But the problem when you're doing that is that it just means a lot of keys. And sometimes the motions can be kind of a pain, especially when you're doing subtle motions, to have to set keys down to 2's the whole way through. So instead, oftentimes if I have to work on a project on 2's, I'll just animate it normally. So this is just my animation. You can see it's all splined. I've got a lot of keys, but that's because things are starting to get offset here. So like this section is all on 1's and whatnot. But let's say I want to put this on 2's. I want to get this whole animation and animate it again, Spider-Verse style or like in a 2D style, and I need it on 2's. Well, like I was saying, you can animate it normally, so that way you can get all of the cleanup nice and easy right in there. And then if you go into, I'm assuming you're using Maya, but most programs should have an equivalent to this. In Maya, what you can do is just select all your animation, go to Edit, Keys, Bake Simulation, right there. Open that up. And essentially what you want to do is you want to change your sample by. This is going to be how many keys are going to go through. If I was to use this right now, sample by would make sure to set a key every single frame. So it's sampling by 1. If I set this to 2, this will sample by every 2 keys, or 2 frames, I should say, which means that it's going to set a key every 2 frames, which is starting to get us on 2s, which is great. But on top of that, what we need to do is we need to remove every other key. So to do that, we just hit the keep unbaked keys, make sure that's unchecked. Just those 2 areas right there. And when we hit bake, it's going to go through our animation. And if you watch the time slider here, once it goes through, suddenly our keys are all on 2s. You can see it in the graph editor as well. Everything is on 2s, and it's just taken all of the curves and put it down to 2s now, which means we've got our whole animation. And we might lose a few little things, which we can retweak and adjust. But we've got all of that in place as if it's on 2s. And then I can just go in here to my graph editor, set this to step mode. And there we go. We've got our shot on 2s. Done. So I can just animate that. And yeah, let's do a play blast of this, so we can actually see it properly. Make sure I go into the options here. Okay. And put it in the folder. So we'll just call this 2s. Save that and play blast. Now it's not going to look quite right because, and it helps if I make sure I'm on the right camera. There we go. So once it goes through here, it's going to lose a few of the details because, again, there's a few frames in here where it would have to be on 1s, which we could do if we wanted to. We could make sure that those stay on 1s and just do specific ranges. But let's just say for this shot, it's okay. We just need it on 2s globally. This is it. So when you're animating on 2s, or this could be on 3s or 4s, it's not really having to deal with trying to get all of those keys in. You can just animate it normally and then bake it out. So if we look at this shot here now, let's actually flip it. There you go. You've got that stylistic 2s feeling where it's just kind of got this like stop motion, like Spider-Verse style of the movement. It's not super fluid, but we did it in a few seconds. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There's no secret to animating on 2s. It's just animate whatever way you're most comfortable so that you get everything down to 2 frames, which sometimes includes baking out. The other thing when you're animating on 2s is that you don't have to stay on 2s the whole time unless the studio specifically is requesting that. Sometimes you'll have moments on 3s, other times on 4s. Some moments, like I was saying earlier, like these punches here, I would make sure that these punches stay on 1s. That way I make sure I get all of the detail I want in there and I don't lose anything. But that's up to me to choose those moments. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Let's see. I think there was another question up here. Do you know of any students who struggle with attention disorders? And if so, would you advise them to manage animation and their condition? Or how would you advise them to manage animation and their condition? I know quite a few people who actually have attention disorders. I never got checked myself, but I have, like, just from my own kind of experience, I know that I have trouble focusing on certain things, and I forget the term for it. Again, never officially diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I have some sort of like minor attention disorder. Again, I forget the name of it. Basically what happens is if I don't have music playing. So you'll notice in the streams there's always music playing. It's not ADD, it's something else. If I don't have music playing or I'm listening to something, my brain has trouble focusing because it's trying to do too many things at once. So if I'm trying to work with no music, I have a very hard time because I'll sit down to work and anything I hear, so if someone starts talking, it pulls me right out of it. If I'm doing something and something else pops up on another monitor, my attention goes right to it. As long as I have music playing, I can kind of, it gives my brain something else to focus on in a minor way that allows me to sit down and really focus on what I'm trying to do. So I almost always have music playing in some small capacity. There's a few other things in there, but really basically it's learning how to manage your, and it's basically how your brain works. And this goes for learning, same thing. When you're learning, when you're trying to animate, everyone's different, and there's no rule that applies to everyone. I remember when I started learning to animate, everyone was telling me, because it's in the Animator Survival Kit, Milt Kahl said that you should never listen to music when you're animating, because how else can you concentrate on anything else? And you need to just focus 100% on animation, nothing else. And for a long time, that was my rule. When I'm animating, I don't have music, I don't do anything else. I focus on the animation, and the same thing with classes and all of these things. No music, no distractions. And man, I had a hard time. I couldn't get into it. I'd sit down and I'm gonna start working, and automatically my brain is going, oh, but you also have to do this and you have to do that, and don't forget about this. And it's like, I can't think straight. I can't focus 100% on what I'm doing because my brain is just wanting to go everywhere else. Eventually, I started listening to music again, and it just helped. It doesn't solve the issue. I still have a hard time concentrating sometimes, but it really does make a big difference for me because I can now sit down and focus on what I'm doing. So you have to find out what works best for you. And this can come from just talking with someone, a doctor or a psychiatrist, someone who knows how to deal with these kind of issues, because everyone's different and they might have kind of suggestions you can use. Reading about different ways you can adapt your learning style. Some people, for example, they learn visually, others learn better when they read, others learn better by doing and following. It's finding the best way for you. And it's going to be different. Everyone's going to have a slight variation. I know some people, when they work, they'll listen to a television show or a movie as they're working. I can't do that unless I've watched that show many times and I know it by heart. So for example, when I was a student, I would watch Wreck-It Ralph. I would just put it on one of my monitors and I'd listen to it. But it had to be because I had seen Wreck-It Ralph many, many times and I knew what was going to happen. The moment that it's something new, I can't focus because I automatically want to study and look at that thing. So yeah, there's no global answer for this, unfortunately. So I can't give you like, oh, just do this and it'll work out for you, haha. No, it's going to be just trial and error, talking to a professional about things like this, someone who's dealt with other people trying to try to focus or do these things that require focus, see what tips and tricks they can give. But trying it out, finding the thing that works for you. And that goes for everyone. Even if it's just like, it's not a full like diagnosed thing, everyone learns differently, everyone works differently. So do what works best for you. If you need to listen to music, listen to music. I listen to video game music. For me, I have to listen to music that's kind of quiet and like not peaceful, but like not too loud. I know some people who listen to heavy metal when they're working, and it's just like you can see it, just they're doing the headbanging. It's like, yeah, listen to music, and they're animating the most peaceful scene, and it's like, hey, if it works for them, that helps. So some people listen to podcasts, others watch Twitch, others watch TV shows. Everyone's different. Some people work better if they have a window in front of them, so they're able to look outside while they're working. Others, like no outside distractions. They basically lock themselves into a cubicle and just stay there. It's whatever works best for you, and it's the process of finding out what that is. That's the tricky part. Yeah, hopefully that helps. And then let's see, there's a few other questions. Do you get a student ID from Animation Mentor for discounts on Toon Boom? I don't believe Toon Boom gives discounts to schools at the moment. I know they used to at Animation Mentor, but I don't think they do anymore, unfortunately. Let's see. How do you stay motivated to keep practicing, as I've been self-teaching for a year and I feel like I'm not progressing as fast as I should? I'm thinking of doing a master's in animation just to learn from others and get mentored. That's a really good question. It's a tricky thing, how to stay motivated. And this is the tricky part. Motivation is fleeting. And it's one of those things, we've talked about this a lot on the stream, but it's always worth repeating. Is motivation and inspiration are both fleeting, especially inspiration. A lot of times people, when they're animating, drawing, all of this kind of these artistic fields, they wait for inspiration to hit. So when they get that wonderful idea, okay, let's jump in and let's start animating and doing this thing. That's great. When the inspiration hits, when you just get this beautiful idea and you feel like you can do it, that's wonderful. But it doesn't last, and it's not reliable. You never know when inspiration is going to hit. If you had to wait for inspiration to hit all the time, you'd never get anything done. Motivation is better, but it's again fleeting. There are days when I don't feel like animating. There are days when I don't feel like being on camera. There are days when I don't feel like teaching classes. It's just like, maybe you don't feel well, or you're just tired, and it's like, I don't feel like doing that. It's not that I dislike it. I feel like, oh, maybe today I should just have a pizza day and watch some television. There are days when you're not going to feel like doing the thing that you need to do. And in this case, it's learning. Once again, motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. So what we need to do is practice dedication. Dedication is what's going to get you ahead. That's what's going to keep you doing it and keep you going regardless. Now that is not to say, a lot of people confuse dedication with forcing yourself to do something whether you like it or not. No, that is not the case. If I hated doing the streams, if I hated teaching, if I hated animating, I don't want to force myself to do something I don't like. I don't want to force myself to hate the thing that I used to love. The point is that I do love it. I know that I love it. I love doing the Twitch streams. I love teaching. The dedication is forcing myself to do this and knowing that it's because I'm going to get better at it. That I'm just delaying this because I'm bored or I'm a little tired. So the dedication is there to keep you going. And once you can get that in there, the dedication that, okay, today I have to do my master study and I'm going to do it unless something really big comes up. I'm not going to take a break just because, I want to watch television. I can watch television later. This is my animation time. So that dedication is important, and it's very hard. Dedication is hard to build up and get into that cycle. Usually it takes about like 2 or 3 weeks to get a good schedule where it's easier to kind of keep going and keep going. Sometimes a month. But the key is setting, like we were talking about before, setting deadlines for yourself, setting goals to hit, setting landmarks to kind of make sure that you do these things. Thinking of it like a class environment. Even if you're learning on your own, if you're learning at school, you've got a class time, you've got a deadline for your assignments, you've got a day that you have to get everything done by. So you do that for your own time. You set up your schedule. For me, when I was a student, and even now, I would set up my own calendar, and I would just, if I'm working on a project, I set up all of these deadlines and I treat it as if there's a grade, or if there's like a class where a teacher is expecting me at this time. I can't put it off. So that's the way I tend to do it. Now, everyone's a little different. So what I would recommend is reading up on dedication and ways of implementing it. I know one very popular, or two very popular methods are the Pomodoro technique. So let me write this in the chat here. Pomodoro technique. Just do a Google search for that. It's basically a timer. So instead of sitting down for long periods of time, so sitting down and doing like 3 hours of working on your animation all at once, you do 20 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. And then you do another 20 minutes and a 5-minute break. 20 minutes, 5-minute breaks. And after a certain amount of repeats, you take a longer break, like 15 or 20 minutes. And then you go back to 25, 20, and so on. And that worked really well. I tried that for a while and it really it made it much more bite-sized. Instead of that kind of thought of, I've got to sit down for 3 hours of gesture drawing. Ugh, I could be doing so many other things. It's like, it's 20 minutes. I'll do 20 minutes. If after 20 minutes, I get up and I feel like I need to do other things, then I'll do that. But usually what ends up happening is I'll do 20 minutes of drawing. I'll get up and I'll go, I could do another 20 more. So you sit back down. You do 20 more minutes, and then you get back up and you go, I think I could do 20 more. And you sit back down and you do, and it's very easy after that to just kind of get a cycle going. And it makes it so that it's easier to kind of get bite-sized chunks and not get lost in just like spending 3 hours doing nothing in that sense. Yeah, it's kind of like time compartmentalization. It's just making things bite-sized. And I found it works really well when you're doing tedious work. So I had to do a whole bunch of like spreadsheet documentation at one point, just like filling out spreadsheets for work. And it was going to be like 2 weeks of this kind of stuff, just tedious, like filling out spreadsheets. And I used the Pomodoro technique every day when I was doing that. And the work days would just fly by. It didn't feel like it was just this long, tedious slog, because I'd get up, stretch, read a little bit, like just 5 minutes, and then I'd sit back down, and it made it easy. And that was work that I didn't like. With work that you enjoy, you do 20 minutes, and it's like, oh man, I don't really want to take a break. And then you get up, and it's like, but you're just thinking of, okay, when I sit back down, I'm going to try this and this, and I'm going to try all these new ideas. So that helped me a lot. It doesn't help everyone, but at least for me, it helped quite a bit. The other thing that helped a lot is the don't break the chain. So if you just Google don't break the chain, this is you can get apps for this. You can print out calendars for this. It's essentially, you have goals that you want to accomplish every day. So maybe you want to animate or do something animated related every day. So learn animation. And you will get a calendar with that goal in mind. And what you do is, let's say on Monday, you sit down and you do something animated related. You do a master study. You read a book. You do something that's related to what you want to learn. You check that off. Then on Tuesday, again, you do something animation related. You check that off. You keep going, keep going. Eventually, you're going to have a calendar where you've done that thing non-stop for a certain amount of time. And the more you look at that calendar, and let's say you've done this for 20 days, that urge to go, I'll take a day off, is a lot harder because you'll break the chain. You're setting your high score. How long can you do this before you break the chain? And just the psychology of the way our brains work, the longer it goes, the less what we want to break that chain, the more we really want to keep it going because we put a lot of work in that chain. We don't want to lose it. So that helped me a lot, especially when I wanted to get started learning something new. So like gesture drawing or just doing something I've never done before, because it kind of motivates you to just do something. And the big thing I would recommend with that is don't set the goals to be super specific. So it's not like I have to animate every day, because some days you're not near your computer. Some days you just don't want to sit down by your computer. So you do it where it's something like learning animation. So that's animating. That's reading a book about animation. It's studying animation, and not just, oh, I watched a movie. Check. That's studying. No. If you watched a movie, did you sit down and analyze the movie? Did you really pay attention to the animation in the film? Then you can check it off. When you were reading about animation, were you actually paying attention to what you were reading, or were you just skimming? You have to be self-policing on that. You have to kind of be strict with yourself and don't let yourself get away with just, oh yeah, I looked at the cover of the book, that's enough. But it's not that you have to do a very specific, like I have to animate 100 frames per day. No, because there will be days when you're not able to do that. So as long as you can kind of get those processes going, and there's a few other things like that, but all of them are not about building motivation. Motivation will come with it, but it'll ebb and flow. There will be days where you just don't want to do it. Just like there's days I don't want to animate. I really don't. But I do it anyway because A, it's my job, and B, I know that if I don't, I'm not going to get better at it. And I love it. I love animation. So I want to get better, so I'm going to do it. I not only looked at the cover of the book, but I bought it. Is it learning? Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I bought a book. Yeah, well, you're on your way to learning, but it's still not learning animation yet. And that's the thing, like, we're just, as humans, there will be days where, like, for example, I was trying to learn how to do gesture drawing, and I had to be very strict with myself, where I couldn't just let myself go in and just doodle, doodle, doodle. Okay, I did some circles. Yeah. No, it had to be a good enough drawing. I had to make sure that I put the effort in. Basically, I was the teacher sitting over my own shoulder going, pay attention. You can't just like doodle in the margins and go, oh, but I'm listening. So you have to be not strict with yourself, but you can't let yourself get away with trying to undermine your progress. So, yeah. And then Mr. Johan, also a good thing is to add a reward system like with it. Yes, that's actually something I did as well. Like if I did what I wanted to do, I can play games or watch TV or have an ice cream. Exactly. So this is a tricky one because it can backfire, but it can work very well as well. So the idea is that you reward yourself for doing the thing that you want to do. So I want to learn animation. If I learn animation, I will have an ice cream. Or if I learn animation, I will get to watch TV and watch my favorite TV show. If I don't have the ice cream or I don't watch television. And if it works great. If it doesn't, what it ends up doing is making you hate the thing that you liked. And Keyflow, thanks so much for the sub. Aw, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Aw. Yeah, well, we were talking about the backfire. It can make you hate the thing that you were trying to learn, where you're starting to associate the idea of animating with, if I don't do this, I'm gonna punish myself. And then it kind of becomes self-deprecating, which, no worries about interrupting. I'm just easily distracted. That's why I haven't read the chat too much, because I know there's a lot of really awesome questions, but I'm so easily distracted. I'll try to get to everyone's questions, and feel free to repost questions as well if I do miss them. But you can start to hate the thing that you wanted to do. So it has to be, you have to kind of really watch yourself. For me, what I would do was, if I don't, and I think I did when I was trying to learn, was it animation? No, it was something else. I forget what it was, but we'll say drawing. I was trying to learn drawing, and I wouldn't let myself watch television until I did some drawing. And that actually ended up being very tricky for me at that time when I did that, because I have family who wanted to watch television, and they have their own schedule. So when they jump in and go, hey, let's watch this TV show, I can't just go, nope, I've got to draw still, sorry. Because if I say no, then their schedule, they can't, like, it just ruins everything. So I was punishing myself, and then I felt bad because I couldn't say no, and it didn't work out. So I had to find a way to reward myself in a way that didn't make me feel just guilty all the time, but also kind of gave me an extra thing. So for me, what it was I would not watch any YouTube videos or anything like that. I would not do the fun stuff of the internet, like no Twitter, no social media, no YouTube, none of that. No fun side of the internet until I did my work. And then once I did my work, then I would watch my YouTube videos. And that ended up working really well for me, because it's not like a high stakes thing. If I don't watch YouTube, it's not like, well, I'm messing up someone's schedule, or oh no, I'm starving myself, I haven't had my food today. It's just a little reward system. And the bonus of it is, at least for me, when I watch YouTube, typically I also try to work. So I would do some work, yes, success, and then reward, watch YouTube. As I'm watching YouTube, I would do more work because I've already warmed myself up. So it was really good for me. And essentially what it's doing is it's training your brain, if you do it correctly, to associate the thing that you're trying to learn, in my case drawing, with reward, with something you like. So you go to do it and your brain goes, I'm happy, I'm going to get a treat afterwards. So it's a very useful technique, but again, be very careful the way you set it up. If you're not careful, it can backfire and make you start disliking the thing you like. So to be used with caution, but it can work very well. Let's see, not related, but is Instagram and WhatsApp working for you guys? Seems like a power outage. I don't know. I don't actually use Instagram or WhatsApp too much. I do have them, I just never use them. Follow-up question of 3D animation discipline. I'm getting a sense of body mechanics, but I find it challenging to incorporate the feelings touch to it. Oh, so emotions. So for emotions, the big thing is really studying the body language of emotions and making sure that the entire body is reflecting it. A lot of people, when they're starting to incorporate feelings or emotion into a pose, they tend to focus on the face, because, well, if I smile, I'm happy. If I frown, I'm angry. If my mouth goes down, I'm sad. And those are all great. Those are kind of the key points that tell us what an emotion is. But body language is a huge part of it. And that's what's really going to sell true emotion versus just, there you go, I'm smiling. But am I really happy? That's just you can think of it like a cliche of happiness, the smile. What makes true happiness is the body posture. Am I going to be sitting upright? Am I going to be more energetic? Am I going to be leaning forward as I'm listening? Am I kind of, yes, what kind of happiness is now this kind of excited happiness? I'm excited, I'm leaning in, versus I'm leaning back, and it's like, now it's, if I'm happy, it's more of the relaxed happiness, just based on the posture. If I like sit up more straight, it's that excited happiness. Let's go, let's do it. All of that is in the body. It's still a smile. The smile doesn't change too much, but everything else will give the true feeling and all the variations to it. And the best way to learn that is master studies and studying reference, because you have to look at how people react in order to know how to animate it. So just looking up videos of like different scenarios, look at people like winning the gold medal, see how they react versus people just watching their kids at a park. And especially if you just watch the adults at a park watching their kids, there's this, a lot of times, this just sense of happiness of just seeing their kids happy. Like the kids are super excited about playing and they're happy and laughing and all this, but then the parents just have this kind of content, like peaceful happiness to them, that again, both happiness, them and the kids are both happy, but it's so different and so unique to that situation. So doing your studying on that, it's going to be what's really going to help come up with that true happiness and understanding that. You're not going to get that from just animating. If you just keep animating, you're going to just animate the things that are in your head and nothing else. You need to expand your boundaries so you know what new things you can add in. Essentially, and I forget who said this, but it's something I take to heart, is you can't animate life without having a life. You can't add life to your shot and to the things that you create if you don't have a life of your own, if you're not experiencing life, if you're not enjoying and like going out there. Now, in today's world, you can't go out there, but you can still experience life, see new things, do new things. That's going to get those kind of creative juices flowing. That's the word I'm looking for. And make it easier to come up with these true emotions, not the cliche smile, frown, anger. Like, what kind of anger? Is it the seething anger? Is it the like twisted anger where you see the vein like coming up and it's just, oh, I'm just gonna like pounce at whoever comes up next? Is it the just like, oh, I've got a headache and I'm just like, just leave me alone kind of thing? There's so many types of anger and sadness and happiness and all of these. You need to experience them in order to be able to create them. So I know it's not like a proper answer where it's like, oh, just do this. But honestly, it's the best answer is you need to study it. You need to understand the variations that go into any emotion. And that's how you get true emotion in your shot and not the just fake, like, oh, he's smiling. Yeah, but is he really happy? And a lot of that comes from the body mechanics. So hopefully that helps. And if you have questions on it, let me know. Let's see. I was wondering, what is the easiest way to remove poses or frames from a shot in Maya in order to change timing? I've talked about this before, but it's the wall off method. So let's say we've got an animation here. Let me undo so we get back to what we had before. Okay. I want to get back to our animation that wasn't on 2s. Okay. So let's say I have this animation and I want to retime the middle section here. So went from 62 to maybe, let's go a longer range. So maybe from 58 to 70. We want to shorten that. We want to make it a little shorter. Well, if I shorten this now, I'm just going to get a whole mess of keys that are all like overlapping and it's going to be a pain. So what I will typically do is I will use the wall off method. The wall off method is you select all your controls and you go to the frame at the start of the range you want to change. So let's say 58. I set a key on everything. Make sure that everything is keyed. I go to frame 72, or no, we said 70. Go here, set a key on everything. From there, in the middle, I can either delete keys or remove keys and retime things. And I know that on both extremes, 58 to 72, nothing is going to be affected after those points. So from here, I can start scaling these keys down. So take that whole middle section here and just bring it down. And then I can delete and move keys in there, and I'm all good. But as long as I have those two endpoints, I know that it's not going to affect anything else. So that's the typical method I use, is just making sure I get that, and then I can do whatever changes I want in the middle. Hopefully that helps. Let's see. How do you overcome the fear of feedback? I know I should see it in a way of improving, but sometimes I just feel they are seeing all the negative aspects of my shot. That's a tough one, because I still have the fear of feedback. I don't think it ever really goes away for most people. But the big thing, at least to me, is there's two main aspects of it. One is making sure you have a reliable place to ask for feedback, where you know that the people who are giving you feedback are not just picking at your work and just like hating on it. So for example, posting on Twitter for feedback, not usually the greatest, because a lot of times you just get trolls or people are mean and nasty and just want to tear your work down. Same with YouTube. YouTube comments are a cesspool of not great comments usually. Even like on a normal, just like whatever video, you'll get comments that are just like, why are you being so mean? It's like, there's nothing to be mean about in this video. It's literally just an announcement or something, and it's like, why? So you don't want to use those types of platforms for like improvement comments, because it's a great way to just like lose all self-esteem. So having a good source of feedback, so a community that you can ask for help in, like you can ask for help in the streams here, anything like that. The Animation Mentor community is one of the best for that. So for anyone in Animation Mentor, use that community. It is going to help a lot. But the other thing is keeping in mind that in whatever community you have, that is, again, a good community, when people are giving you feedback, they are not typically giving it to tear you down. Most people, at least in a good community, are not going to be giving you feedback because they want to see you fail. That they are pointing out every single flaw to kind of point out, see, you suck, you're not really that good as you think you are, haha. They're not trying to do that. They're not trying to be mean. They are giving you feedback and pointing out the flaws because they want to see you get better. They want to see where you can be. They want to see the next big thing that you create. When I give people feedback, it's not to tear them down. It's not to say that, aha, see your body mechanics, they suck, haha, you're terrible, feel bad about what you've done. No, it's not that. It is because I want to see this person get better and make the next cool thing. I want to see what they create in the future. And if fixing a few small issues can help them overcome it and then create that next amazing, glorious animation that I get to watch and just be amazed by, like, yay for me. Hopefully I helped in some small way. But a lot of people, that's kind of the, maybe not that specific thinking, but we want to see the other person succeed, and giving the feedback is the way to do that. So when I receive feedback, that's what I'm thinking about, is not these people tearing me down. These people are trying to raise me up over their shoulders and just go, look at what you can do, see how great you can be, versus look how terrible you are. So it's very much trying to change that thing. It never, again, fully goes away, but at least for me, it helps. So for example, I'm doing the modeling workshop, sculpting workshop, I should say, at Animation Mentor, which has been a lot of fun. And throughout all of it, it's been a lot of feedback and a lot of things where I thought I was doing decently in some areas, and then I would get feedback. It's like, no, see this, the anatomy is a little off here and you have to fix this. And I could have easily gone through that with the idea of, man, they're just pointing out that I suck and that I don't know what I'm doing. But I look back at what I did before and what I'm doing now, and it's so much better. It's so much better. And I couldn't have gotten that without their feedback. I wouldn't have been where I am now without their help. So they were not putting me down. They were raising me up higher than I could have achieved on my own. So that's the big thing. And it's hard. Like Zenithist there, I would ask for feedback, but even if I'm embarrassed, that's a great mentality. When you ask for feedback, sometimes it is embarrassing. Sometimes it's like, I know this sucks. I know it's terrible. I know it's just bad and it doesn't reflect well on me. But regardless, if I want to grow, I need to do this. I need to put myself out there and get that feedback, because that's the way you get better. That's the way you find out what you did wrong and what you can improve upon. And like for me, that's something I try to incorporate into everyday life. I'm always looking for feedback in anything I do. It's very it's important in order for us to get better. We can't grow on our own. We can, but it's going to take so much longer than if we just have some insight. And then the other aspect of that is, keep in mind that when you get feedback, it doesn't mean your original idea was bad. So, for example, what's a good example I can use? Well, here, I'll show an example of the work that I was doing in the sculpting workshop, because there's a very specific feedback I want to just kind of use as an example. It's a small thing, but hopefully it'll read clearly here. So this is the first time I've ever done this, so I hope it works out. So let's go to the Cintiq over here. I've been wanting to test this for a while, so this gives me a good excuse. And I'm sorry if the camera angle sucks. You're going to be looking at the back of me for a while. And hopefully the mic comes through clearly. So, oops. So this is the sculpt I've been working on in the sculpting workshop. So this is close to final. I just have to do a few small changes. And we've got that. Again, this is based on a lot of feedback. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere close to this without all the feedback and help I got. So huge kudos to everyone who helped me out on this. But I got some feedback about the ponytail. So the ponytail right now is going screen right. It's flowing off to the side. And the feedback I got was, make the ponytail go screen left. So over her other shoulder over here. And I could have easily gone, oh man, it means my original idea sucked. I'm bad, I'm terrible. Why wasn't I thinking clearly? I could have brought that down. But keep in mind, your original idea had a reason behind it. It doesn't mean that your original idea was bad. It just means that there could be an alternative and it might be better to try it out. So in my thinking, when I did this ponytail, I was thinking, how can I get a clear silhouette? So the ponytail goes over screen left here so that regardless of the angle, you can still see that ponytail. Even from the front, you can still see the ponytail going out. That was my thinking. But then my mentor mentioned that if I have the ponytail go the other way, so around here, what I'll end up creating is a contrast of motion where you have kind of the energy of the arm going from this view screen right, and the ponytail kind of flipping around and creating a contrasting line against it versus all the lines kind of being kind of diagonal. Top right, bottom left, top right, bottom left, top right, bottom left. If you kind of notice that, see how everything's repeating? Top right, bottom, is all like these diagonals that are kind of parallel to each other. Even the belt, top right, bottom left. Everything's high up on the top right. The only thing is the hips, where the hip is higher on the left side versus the right. So, it's not that my original idea sucked. I had a reason behind it, but Now I've got a new idea that I can try. Now, do I have to apply it? Yes and no. It depends on what I'm working on. So if I'm working at a studio and my director tells me to do that, I have to do it. That the director told me, I have no choice. In this case, my mentor asked me to try it. They didn't tell me, so I have the choice. I'm going to try it out and we'll see what feels better. But either way, it didn't mean that my original idea sucked. It just is a different perspective. And when you get feedback in a lot of your work, it is not about your original thoughts and your original ideas, like just you as a person being bad and like, see what you did there, you're terrible at this and all your ideas suck. No, not at all. You had a reason why you tried this. Here's another reason to try something different. See which one works better. And if you approach it with that way, all you're doing when you're getting feedback is getting new opinions and new ideas that you can use to build up your original shot into something better. And you don't have to lose your vision. You don't always have to apply everyone's feedback, especially if it's just like random person's feedback and not like a director or a supervisor. If it's just a coworker or some other person, you can choose not to apply it, but you can still learn from it and maybe incorporate elements of it to make your shot better. So again, feedback is all about people wanting to boost you up, and it's never about you as an animator, as a sculptor, as an artist being terrible. You're learning. You're always learning. If you look at a lot of like the Disney films and big productions, oh man, those shots are amazing. Look at how great they are. Those animators, how did they do it? They had a storyboard department, a previs department, a director, a supervising animator. They had co-workers. They had all these other departments helping them to make this one shot. And you, like when you're working on your own, and just as animators, we have this idea that when I'm working on my own, I need to be able to create a shot that is just as good as a Disney shot, and then I feel bad if I don't. But that's unfair because you're trying to do it all on your own, and they've got a team of potentially dozens of people to make one shot look as good as it does. And that's not including the rendering and like VFX and all of that. That's just the pre-production. That's not a fair comparison. So when you are working on your shots, when you're trying to do these things, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Professionals are always asking for feedback. That's what makes them professionals, is that they're not afraid to get the feedback and get better. And get used to seeing it as a way to improve instead of what would be the right word? Instead of seeing feedback as a mark of failure, where if you get anyone who goes, hey, you should have done this, man, why did I submit it? Why I suck? Why did I even try? That's not the right way to look at it. So, long tangent. I hope that was helpful. And I hope that answered the question. Did you model it and then pose it or sculpt it in the pose? I modeled it, so here, I actually have. So this is the posed version. Which one is it? I think. Is it this one? Yeah. So I have a few different outfits. I hope the mic comes through clearly here. So, oops. So I have the bracer and the jacket version. So there. I have the, this is from concept art from Noelle Stevenson. So I've got that version. And then I've got the, just because I wanted to try sculpting long cloth, I've got the dress version. So, let's get rid of that sneaker. There we go. So it started like that, just the T pose, or A pose specifically. And then I posed it out with the actual pose. I've got the sword separate here as well. So Yeah, it starts off with the A pose. That way it's easier and faster because you can draw it or sculpt it with symmetry. You don't always have to start that way, but it just makes it a little faster. Let's see. It's a 12-week workshop. For a second, I thought 6 weeks. Yeah, it is. The sculpting workshop at Animation Mentor is 12 weeks. If you are interested in it, I will say this. Don't expect to learn the basics. It is if you look at the title, it's Introduction to Character Sculpting, not Introduction to Sculpting. It is the introduction on how to use, how to sculpt in order to get character in your sculpts, not, oh, here, you're going to learn how to use ZBrush in this workshop. You need to have at least a basic understanding of ZBrush and Maya for the workshop to be worth your money. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out on a lot. With that said, if you want to learn ZBrush, there's a lot of great tutorials on the Pixelogic site that go over all the basics. So you can learn pretty much everything you need to know on ZBrush, like just the interface and how to sculpt and the basic techniques right from there for free. And then you can go into like a sculpting workshop and then go right in. And what would you recommend so you don't become over reliant on feedback as it can leave questioning what to do next? That's a good question. To become less reliant on feedback, you need to do master studies. You need to learn things on your own. You need to come to your own conclusions. That's kind of the big thing. So for example, if you have a question about, okay, I'm trying to do this body mechanics and I tried to get this to work and it didn't work. What do I do? How do I get it to work? Your first response should not be, I'll ask for help and see what someone else tells me. That's a good response, but we don't want to do that yet. The first response should always be, I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to study it. So if you are trying to get some body mechanics, let's say, to work, or an acting choice or something like that, and it's not quite working, do your research. Do a master study. Study a film. Read a book about like acting or emotions. Study anatomy. So for example, when I was working on the sculpt and sometimes like the anatomy was not quite right, I would not just go right to the mentor and go, hey, what's the wrong here? I would read up on anatomy. I would study all the muscles in the shoulder and the back, and I would try to make my own conclusions first. Once I do that, sometimes I would solve it and then I'd keep moving. Other times I couldn't quite get it right. At that point, you can ask for feedback. But then what happens is you did all of that studying and you've got kind of like the basis of the answer, but you don't have the full answer yet, which makes it much easier that when the mentor or whoever gives you the feedback and tells you, oh, it's just this, it fits all the puzzle pieces together. Now you can go, click, I can remember this for next time. It makes you remember. If your entire process is, I've got something I don't understand. Hey, can you help me? And then you get the feedback and you just apply it. Do you know why you applied it? Do you know why you were doing this thing versus the other? No. You need to try to answer the question yourself first. If that's the best way to avoid getting over-reliant on feedback. You need to be able to self-learn. And that goes for any studio. When you're working at a studio, you do not want to be the animator that is constantly going to their supervising animator and go, hey, I don't know what I should be doing here. Can you take a look at this? And then they'll give you some feedback and then you'll go, hey, about this next thing, I don't know what I should be doing here. Can you tell me what to do? They're not going to like that. You need to be able to go through and kind of learn that on your own. Okay, what do I need to do here? I've got my basic outline. Okay, I need to have this acting choice. I need to make the character sad. Okay, who is this character? I go to the different departments and I figure out, okay, who's this character? What do they look like when they're sad? What's their personality? What's the subtext of the scene? What's the scene before mine? What's the scene after mine? I do all of that work myself. I need to do that. I'm not going to expect someone else to do it for me. I put all of that in. Yeah, exactly. You take ownership of the shot. And then when there's something I still don't understand and I can't find an answer anywhere else, that's when I ask for help. Asking for help should not be the first instinct. It is an instinct you need to have. You have to ask for help. At some point you will need help, and you need to be able to ask that without being afraid. But it shouldn't be your first instinct. If your first instinct is, hey, I did a change, can you double check that I did this right? You need to have the confidence. You need to build that confidence. And the way you build that confidence is, again, studying and making informed choices. So, what's a good example? I'm trying to think of a shot or something on the sculpt I can use as an example. Well, here, we'll use this as an example. Oh, lots of rolling back and forth today. I'm getting my workout. There you go. We'll call it a workout. Scooting like a foot in one direction. So, as I was working on this, I had a question at one point. I want to add detail on the boots. So, on the bottom of the boots, I didn't want them to just be flat and boring. I wanted to add actual treads right here. So, when I did that, I didn't just go, hey, what treads should I use? Okay, and then I get feedback and I put them in and, hey, did I do it right? No. What I did was, okay, I'm going to add treads. I know I have to do this. Now, there's a few criteria here. I want to follow the treads and the design that's in the show. That's the diamond pattern right there. I want to keep it simple. I don't want to go super realistic and like tons of detail. Okay. And I want to make it a little bit more believable so that it's not just a very basic, like it's too cartoony or else it's going to not fit the style of the sculpt. So I went through and I studied what kind of treads are used for boots. What do they typically look like? I looked through a ton of images and then I made a bunch of different concepts based on all of those to try and make a good combination. From there, I then went through and applied it to the boot. That took a long time. That was a lot of trial and error and a lot of testing. But I did that on my own. I made sure to do that research based on all the criteria I already had. Then when I show it to the mentor, they're able to go through and refine me on those choices. But I didn't have to rely on them for any of it. I still used their feedback and applied it afterwards, but all the choices were made consciously, and I made sure to progress there. So when they go, okay, why did you do this? I don't go, tread? I don't know, boot. It's like, yeah, that's not an answer. Boot? What kind of answer is that? No, I can give them, okay, I was studying this kind of boot. It's based on a work boot, steel toe. I also wanted to incorporate the cartoon elements and I wanted to keep it simple. I can fill in all those blanks and give them the reasoning for every single one of those. And then they can go, but if you also think about this thing, or, you know, that element about keeping a cartooniness, because you're so, like, you're right on the edge of realistic, you should maybe think about pushing this element of it. Suddenly, it's not just fix it, it's I'm understanding why I need to fix it and at which stage I went wrong. And this goes for animation, it goes for drawing, it goes for anything. We need to be able to self-study. So the same thing happened with the sneakers. So for the sneakers here, like you can see that was the old tread right there, and so nothing. And then the new tread that I just put in like yesterday. And this is based off of a lot of reference and just kind of trying to create this very specific feeling to the shoe. But again, that was from a lot of study. I didn't just do it out of the top of my head. Yeah, exactly. Converse. That's exactly right. So anyone who has a Converse, it's like, yeah, you probably recognize it. Which is, again, based on the fan art, or not the fan art, the concept art that Noelle Stevenson had created. So I used that and I mixed it with actual Converse. Not exactly the same, a little changed. So the design here is definitely Converse inspired, but then mixed in with the original artwork and all of those, and it fit into a more cartoony, kind of simplified style. So yeah, all of it comes from, once again, doing that self-study, learning to ask questions and find the answer yourself. And sometimes you won't find an answer, in which case, definitely it's okay to ask for help. But you need to be able to find the answer. And if the person asks you, what were you trying to do here? Give a response. PF Flyers. I don't know. Is that a type of shoe? PF Flyers? Let's see. Oh yeah, they are. Nice. Ooh, I'll have to check those out. Yeah, those are really cool. Wonder what the tread looks like on those. Just going through images to see if I can find images of the tread. I like the style of them. Let's see. The only shoes I have are like SWAT boots. So I need to get some actual good sneakers. How much time do you spend each week on that sculpting assignment? Like one or like, if all told, probably like 2 days. I usually only have like Sunday that I can spend a good chunk of the day on, Tuesday, and then sometimes a little bit of Saturday. Ideally I try to spend at least 2 days, if not more, if I can. So I think on average I try to spend at least 20 hours a week on it. And that does not always mean actual sculpting, but for example, when I was doing the shoes, I spent half a day just studying shoes. How are they stitched? What stitching do they use? Which style do I want to go with? What tread do I want to go with? All of this kind of stuff, trying to learn the anatomy of shoes. Same thing with the clothing. When I was doing the jacket, it was a lot of, okay, how do jackets wrinkle? Studying, like, I just took a lot of reference of myself, just got a thicker shirt, raised my arm up for the pose. Okay, how do the wrinkles work on the shirt? A lot of self-study and just shooting reference. The same thing as animation. So it's not always the sculpting process. And same thing with animation. When someone tells you like, oh, I spent 2 weeks or 3 weeks on this animation, it's not always just animating. It's the reference process, the studying process, all of these different elements go into it. But that's what makes it even better in the end, versus just trying to brute force your way to an ending and hoping for the best. Hope you get to 3D print your sculpt. I'm actually going to try and 3D print it probably in the next few weeks. I have to learn how to prep it for a 3D print. I've never done. This is honestly the first time I've ever done a human or just any character sculpt, as well as clothing sculpting. Most of my sculpting before was very basic, like just a few anatomy studies on a few, like just the nose or like a face, nothing full body, and then mostly props. So this is the first time I've used ZBrush for anything as complex as this. And it's going to be the first time I try to print something other than a quick test. So I actually did a test of the sword. This was a while back. But this is going to be the first time I'm going to do a test on a full body character. So it's going to be interesting to see how I can get that split up to be printed. Let's see. How do I take the step to incorporate body acting with dialogue? In school, I've had a few assignments on full body acting, and I can animate the face and body separately, but it tends to fall apart when I combine them. It's it's tricky because as we act in terms of our body acting and our facial animation, there is a slight disconnect to it. It doesn't time perfectly. So as I'm moving around and as I'm talking, I might be gesturing and doing these things, but my mouth is following the timing of my dialogue. My gestures are doing their own thing. There is a slight disconnect. Now, with that said, there will be moments that connect. We usually call these accents. So if I hit a kind of a louder note, when I go louder, that's when I have this hand gesture, and you can emphasize that even more. So to connect them, it's not about connecting every single moment, but connecting the key moments, those emphasis points. And that's when you're going to try to aim to like get things to line up. And that's just going to be looking at your reference, studying that timing, understanding that. But that comes in at the body mechanics level. You have to anticipate when those are going to happen. So for example, if you're animating a dialogue shot and you hear that accent in the voice, you want to make sure that in your body mechanics, even if you haven't done the face, you should feel that accent in that moment. So that's going to be the first thing. The second thing is looking for ways that you can lead and follow. So it's all kind of breakdowns. So if you have, let's actually use the shot here as an example. I haven't done anything with the face. So if I wanted to animate the face now, let's say I just want to do a quick brow pass. What I would need to do is I would need to find moments that connect the brow to the motion of the body in a nice, believable way, but without just over animating it too much. So for example, one way I could do this right here is as he goes down, I could stretch out the brow. So I'm thinking of the concept of squash and stretch. And as the character comes down here, I'm going to connect those motions by bringing the brows up. And then as he comes down into this hit, then those brows hit down and maybe a little lower even. So I'm connecting them based on that kind of motion through here. And now I can go through and let's just refine that curve. A little bit there. And now we come down and you feel that hit even more. So it's watching the motion and looking for these areas that we can connect them in. Now that's kind of a very basic explanation of it, but it really kind of just goes to that. We are trying to build this relationship with them. We're not just animating one thing completely separate from the other. So in this case, I did the body mechanics first. Technically that's separate, but now as I'm adding the facial animation, I'm not just kind of animating it in a void. I've already got motion that I can build off of and use as a guide. So we can start doing something like this. Now that face is actually a little bit too late, so I'm gonna just offset this one frame right there. And then that needs to close a lot faster. So something like that. And that, oops, a little too late now. So I know that's not like a great answer in terms of like, there's no, oh, just do this. And hey, Kurvash, thank you so much for the sub. Aw, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love the song too much. But yeah, it's looking for those moments. And the same thing goes for like hand animation. Hands don't typically wiggle around too much. We hit gestures and we kind of hold them and then we'll do a quick change. So for example, here, as he comes down, I could have the the fingers right here, I'm going to do this super quick so it's going to look super rough. I could have these open up just a tad right here. So as he comes down, we get that little bit of a drag in those fingers. And then it tightens up into the fist right there. And then let's push that fist even more here. So it's a little motion, but you're going to feel that. You're not going to see it per se, but you're going to feel it. And of course you'd want to refine it. Like, this was done super quickly, so the fingers are going to collapse in on each other and it's going to be weird. But hopefully that kind of answers your question. If you have any other specifics on that, definitely let me know. Let's see. Oh, take care, everyone who had to leave. And laissez faire, bonjour. Mr. Johan, thanks for the reminder. And I think I saw a few other reminders, so I'll take a few sips. And if anyone else has questions that I missed, which I know I did, I missed quite a few questions earlier, feel free to repost them. Apparently working at the Cintiq and going over there is even harder to read chat than normal. So I hope all of this has been helpful. I know it's not even close to the topic we were going to talk about today, but it is one of those big things where, like, motivation, looking for feedback, all of these elements, this kind of, I guess you could almost say, like, the psychology of being an animator or an artist, it comes in very important, especially when you're trying to work in a studio environment or just working on your own. It's a very important part of what we do. And if we're not careful, it can lead to a lot of bad things. So burnout being one of them. It can lead to just not liking your work. I had that bad for a long time, where I was not a fan of anything I ever did, no matter how good it was. And I'm not saying it was great, but I would never see the positive of anything I did. It was always the negatives. It could have been better. I did this wrong. I did that wrong. It was bad, 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 bad. I never looked at what I did right. What did I succeed at? What did I do better than I did last time? That's still a success. That's still learning. So as an artist, we need to be mindful of that, because if we're not, it's not going to make for a fun career. If you're constantly hating on your own stuff, which, to be fair, most artists, we kind of do a lot of the time, it's just not healthy. And it's not something that can be sustained for a long period of time. At some point, it will break. And it's just so much harder to get everything going after that. So just be very careful of those things, and just be aware of ways you can kind of improve your own learning and kind of just workflow in all of those elements. So with that, unless there's any other questions, and if there are, definitely feel free to ask, let's actually jump back into our animation, because we had been talking about how we can improve certain things. So the animation here, as we were talking about last time, oops, wrong animation, that's the 2's version. We were looking at different areas that could be improved. So another area that, this is something I had mentioned in the last stream, is the shake here is a little too sharp and poppy. So I need to soften that up a little bit. But then in terms of how can we improve, let's see, it's better to have fun with the failures, like laugh at it. I do that often now. Same here. I laugh at my failures. I've had so many, like, animation tests, sculpting tests, where it went wrong. Nothing about it went right. There was a version of that sculpt, the Adora sculpt. So let's kind of go back to that. There was a version of that sculpt that it looked like a gremlin. The proportions were all off. Like, this was one of the very first passes. Everything was just not right about it. And it could have easily, like, if it was a younger me, I would have easily just gone, I shouldn't even try. I failed at sculpting. Why do I even bother? Like, apparently I can't do it right. And instead, now I just looked at it and went, it looks like a gremlin. And then I tried again. And I learned what not to do. I learned what proportions not to try and use for the character. So mistakes are just learning, as long as you actually learn from them. If you make a mistake and then you just go, oh well, that's it, I'm moving on, and I'm a failure. What did you learn from that mistake? What did you improve upon? Nothing. You just called yourself a failure and tried again. Instead, if you make a mistake and go, I didn't do it, but what didn't I do right? And you look at it. And for me, it was the proportions. The head was too big. The body was too short. The size of the shoulders was wrong. I think my hip, I didn't have enough torso, so the character was too short. And then the legs were slightly the wrong proportion. I made sure to look at all of those and understand what made it look like a gremlin versus a person. And when I did the second version, I fixed all of them. It didn't make it perfect on the second try, but it made it way better. And it's because I knew what I did wrong. So making mistakes is not a bad thing at all. You're always going to make mistakes. Like, I made mistakes working on this shot. It was on stream. You can go back and see all the mistakes I've made. Doesn't mean I can't learn from them and make it better in the end. See, when you design a 3D character, do you create the full body, then clothes, or the clothes without the body? It depends on what the goal is. So in this case, I did the full body and then I created the clothing afterwards because I knew I was going to do different outfits. So I knew I was going to have different outfits, so I need to have as much of the body just in case that one outfit, like if the arm stopped here, but then my one outfit, for example here, there's no sleeves, I'd be in trouble. If you know that your character is just going to have one outfit, and especially if it's not like a skin tight outfit, you would just sculpt the hands and the head, and then the clothing you just do separately, and you don't need the whole body. Why waste the time sculpting that if the character is going to be in a big bulky spacesuit, for example? So it depends on what the goal is, what the end product is going to be. So for example, with lots of rigs, you have kind of half and half. Some rigs are made where there's no body underneath. It's just the clothing, and then the head and hands are separate, and the feet. Other rigs, like Jules here, has a full body under the clothing, because it's expected that students who use this rig is from Animation Mentor, students will want to change his clothing. So if you want him to be in a tank top, you can do that. If he didn't have the body, you couldn't do that, and you'd be stuck with that one outfit. So there is no right or wrong way. It's what is the end product going to be and what's the purpose of the product. So yeah. I'm currently modeling my game character. I was wondering if I could see the wireframe of this character. I love seeing the contortions of the face. Definitely, we can do a quick... Oops, that's the wrong button. I need a button to switch to my other source here. So if you just do a search for facial topology, this is going to get you a lot of good examples of topology. So if you want to do that, I highly recommend it. For this character, let's zoom in on the face here. And oops, that's a sock. Come on. There we go. A bandage. There we go. And let's look at the face topology. So we'll go to the low res. And then there you go. So there's the topology. Hopefully that shows up pretty well. The big thing is making sure you have the loops around the eyes, around the mouth, around the nose, the ears, and yeah, as smooth and even as possible. If you have stretch topology or zigzags in your topology, that's just going to mess things up. So yeah, trying to get that nice and clean. And then if you're modeling, you also want to make sure, like, if you remove the eyes, for example, that it doesn't just end. Usually you want to actually have like something to hold the eye. Same thing with the mouth. If the mouth is going to open, you want the mouth bag, which is where the tongue and the teeth are going to sit. It shouldn't just be a void. So be very mindful of that. So hopefully that helps. But the way I did it is I just, again, a lot of research, just do some searching on topology, facial topology. You'll see a lot of great examples and just kind of follow along. Basically, as long as you get the circles around the mouth, the eyes, that's the most important bit. So let's go back in here. Let's see. So we were talking about a few areas we can fix. Now, a few areas that I do want to add into this shot. I don't know if I'll be able to do today, honestly, just because we had so many great tangents on this stream. I might save it for tomorrow. A few things I do want to do is I think I do want to add a facial pass, because as I look at this, the face is just boring right now. It's just not interesting. So for the facial pass, it's going to be very simple. It's just going to be kind of watching the brows, kind of pushing those, maybe a little bit of the mouth. It's not going to be like full facial acting and like big expressions, just something to keep it alive. But when you're doing that, how do you know what's going to work and what's not? Well, you look at your reference, or you shoot some reference. So in my case, on my shot here, I actually have the reference that I shot, which is now not going to be timed to this shot here because we retimed everything. So show image planes, that's it. So embarrassing reference. Try to zoom in here. Oh, my camera's stuck. If ever your camera's stuck, you just need to refocus it. So if you watch the face here, as it's not embarrassing at all. You can see very slightly as the eyes come down, the brows are actually opening up right here. So they open up, then as they come down, it closes even tighter. You can see by the wrinkles in the eye. It's very subtle, but it's there. Then as it comes up, it relaxes a little bit. It's not much, but again, if you look at the wrinkles to the side, you can see that it relaxes a little bit and it tightens up through this. And right at the end here, once again, it relaxes again, the wrinkles. It's not much. It's not like the brows are going up and down and bouncing around, but there is some flex in there. Now for the mouth, there's a lot more change. So we're getting like right here, the teeth are actually a little separate. They come down, they close before opening and closing again. Now the teeth are kind of pressed in. We go through and you can see it opens up just a little bit again there. And we go through. So we study this reference. I'm not going to go through like every single little bit here, but what we can do is use this as a basis. We don't have to follow it exactly. I could make the whole like sneering, like teeth out expression if I wanted to, but I don't have to. I can use that as an inspiration to when does the face relax? Because as the jaw opens, that means I'm relaxing my jaw. If the teeth are closed, that's tension. So as the character was coming down here, the face was relaxing a little bit, so I could open up that jaw right there. As the character was coming down, I noticed that the eyebrows were relaxing a little bit. So I could drag those up, just kind of like what I did, but maybe not nearly as much, or maybe I'll exaggerate, who knows? It's animation, we can go quite a ways. So I could maybe push this to be something like this, just a little higher. As he comes down, really push this squint right here as the jaw clamps shut. And we can do a whole pass of that. Same thing with the hands. So same thing I was demoing before. Maybe we add a little bit more drag in the fingers here as he comes down, so that when he hits here, we go into a even tighter fist. And then as he kind of comes up here and relaxes, the hand kind of opens up again. But this time, not in a dragging way, but kind of just in a relaxed way, where instead of this strong fist, we get something like this. So it goes through, raises up, and then through here, as he anticipates for the punch, we can get a kind of flexing, and then we just keep it into the tight fist. That would be a nice way to just break up this animation and avoid the hands just being locked in like one fist, but without having to add a ton of complex and like detailed hand motions. We don't need that. Again, if you look at hands, a lot of time we're not constantly moving our hands and wiggling our fingers around. So it's okay to just do a little bit of flexing. We can even hold it still for a long period of time, but if it just holds still for the entire shot, it's gonna feel dead. It's not gonna have any life. We tend to flex our hands quite a bit. Again, not big motions, but they don't just sit still and do nothing. And let's see, totally want one of those AM shirts. The AM shirts are really comfy. I really like those AM shirts. And do you first focus on getting the eyes right, or do you work on each face part simultaneously? Usually I'll try to do the whole face simultaneously, at least for the first pass, because the face is connected. It's all connected. So what I do with my mouth here, so for example, if I do this and just move my mouth, look at what's happening with my eyes. You can actually see my brows moving even when I do this. The corners of my brows are moving down. So that's just my mouth moving, but all of our muscles are connected. When I try to do this, it's going to pinch there and it's going to move the whole kind of facial mask there. So because it's connected, I like to do kind of a full pass on everything first, and then I'll start refining the individual bits. That's me personally. And it really depends on the project as well. If you've got like really highly detailed eye animation where the character is doing these big expression changes, but their mouth doesn't really change the whole time, they're just kind of, and you're getting a lot of facial eye motion and brows, but the mouth is kind of just that, then I'll separate it. Same thing if the eyes are supposed to be just dead and flat and the mouth is doing all of this crazy stuff and just kind of doing this kind of motion. I'm not going to try and key the eyes the whole time when the mouth is doing this really complex stuff, because the eyes aren't doing anything. So there's no one way to do this. It's whatever works best for the situation. In most cases, I will try to keep it together because they work together, but it is not a given. So let's see, what else can we add? We can definitely do a benbow pass on this. Now, this is actually something we did early. So if you actually look at the leg, you'll notice how it's kind of got this nice bend in here. That's the bend bows. They are shaping controls. We did this in our first blocking pass of the shot. We went through and did a whole bend bow pass. And if you look at the shot, it's actually working really well for the most part. You've got these nice curves throughout all the limbs, even though we haven't really touched the bend bows since the blocking. This is what I like about doing bend bow passes early, is they don't really need a lot of animation. Once you get the key poses in there, unless you're doing something really cartoony, they tend to just work pretty well. Now, with that said, it doesn't mean I can't go through and refine them a little bit more. So that could be a nice thing to go through, a nice benbow pass. The other thing I can try to do is push some timing a little bit. So as he's going back here, I might be able to push the timing here as he goes back just a little bit faster. Now that I've done the splines and the kind of refinement, I can still retime things. I'm not ever at a point where I can't retime part of my shot. Timing is something that you can change at any point. So don't be afraid of it. If you feel like, man, this part's just, if only I had timed it a little faster, do it. There's nothing wrong with that. What else could I add? So a little bit of facial stuff, some hands, some arcs. I could add some smears in here and some multiples. Even though it's a more realistic shot, if there's any moments here that I feel aren't reading super clearly. So let's see, what's a good one? Right here, as he kind of bounces back, I'm feeling a little bit of a pop right in here. A little too much. So I could try to add a multiple in there. Very slightly. So it would be basically like this, and then you could either like add just some lines right there, or you could add like just kind of a ghost image of the knuckles right there. So you could do something like that. And just use that to refine some of these moments. Even though it's a realistic shot, it doesn't stop us from using these other kind of improvements that we can do. So it's all just going through and looking at your shot and thinking, what can I add? What can I improve? And similar to what we were talking about before about trying to not be reliant on other people, part of that is study. That's going to be the biggest thing, and hopefully the biggest thing that you all take away from this is when you're not sure what to do next, do master studies. Look at other animations. See what other people have done to make their shots read and become better. That's how you're going to improve your own work, by leaps and bounds, versus kind of sitting here and just going, now what? I guess I'll try something. Oh, it didn't work. Oh well. No. Try to approach it not scientifically, but in a structured way. Figure out what other people did, and then see if you can apply it in. So I don't know if we'll have time today. This was going to be a short stream, so I might have like half an hour that I can spend. We'll see if we can maybe fix a few things in the shot before. We'll probably do a lot of this tomorrow, in tomorrow's stream. Try to just do a whole animations thing, but yeah. We'll see what we can get done today. Now, Mr. Johan, you have a question. This is really off topic. This whole stream has been off topic, so nothing's off topic at this point. I'm having my manipulators blacked out whenever I tear off a camera view. It only happens when I tear off a camera view. Do you know why this is happening? They're blacked out. I know that the manipulators will black out a few times if you're doing certain things, but usually it means that you're trying to access something that's not movable. When you tear off a camera, is it that the manipulators don't work at all? So if I tear off a copy here, for example, you can see that I can still use the manipulator. It still works fine. As I select things, is it just showing up as black on that view but fine in the other one? And if so, can you move it on the tear off view, or is it just like a black dot with just black lines and you can't do anything with? And as you're typing that out, to prevent the knees and elbows from rubber hosing or clipping, does it have to be topologized a certain way to make the bending better, or is it mainly how it's skinned? The topology makes a huge difference. So when you're learning topology, you want to study topology. The elbows and knees should be topologized in a specific way. Usually it's just kind of adding a little bit more detail in those areas, but kind of the bony structure of the elbow, to make sure that it deforms correctly, has to be topologized correctly. The shoulders and the whole shoulder girdle here has to be topologized correctly so that the shoulders will deform correctly. Any joints, even finger joints, have to be topologized correctly. Usually, again, it's adding a little bit more detail, although you can go even further and make very specific topology just for the bends of the fingers. So yeah, Skinning is going to do a lot, but skinning is reliant on good topology. If you don't have a good topology, skinning is not going to matter. They won't work after sometimes. I can't do anything. They are not locked. I can change from the channel box, but the manipulators don't work from any viewport. Interesting. Let's see. Just as a test, I would try resetting your preferences in Maya, just to make sure that's not causing any issues. It could be that something got changed and is just wreaking havoc. So reset your preferences. You don't have to delete your old preferences, so that way you can easily reset them back. But it's just as a test to make sure that nothing else in Maya is going on. If it's still happening after you reset your preferences, then most likely it's something in either the scene itself or just in the way that the layout is happening. So I would test that out first. Is there a good resource for figuring out what to topologize correctly, what's topologized correctly? Basically study. So once again, it's do Google image searches, look for topology, look for facial topology, hand topology, body topology, look at rigs. So download some rigs, especially if you can find like high quality rigs like the Apollo and why do I keep forgetting her name? She's named after the Huntress. Apollo and not Athena. It's not Aphrodite. Is it Aphrodite? Maybe. Artemis. Why? It's Artemis. It's art. How hard is that? I keep getting Apollo. No, or it's like Apollo and then Athena. No, it's terrible. Artemis. Thank you all so much. So like download them, see what their topology is like. So for example, one thing I was doing when I was looking at topology is I have the Jules rig here, and I would look at his topology. What did they do for his face? How do they work on the nose here? Where do all the lines run? So study good topology from good rigs. That's going to be the best way to do it. And there is no one way to do it. That's the other thing. That's why you want to do a lot of studying on a lot of different sources, because different facial proportions will mean different topology. It's not kind of one universal topology for everything. If you've got a creature with 3 eyes, that's going to change the topology very much. If you've got a creature with just a tiny little mouth compared to one with a huge mouth, that's going to change the topology of the cheeks and the rest of the face. So it's studying and then trying to figure out why they're doing those specific things. And in most cases, topology is just making sure you have a round edge loops around important facial structures, eyes, mouth, anything that's going to move a lot. You need more detail there and a very specific topology. Places like the cheek, like up here, it doesn't really move that much. It'll kind of scrunch and shift a little bit, or the forehead, it doesn't really do much. So that can just be simple topology there. So hopefully that helps. Now let's actually go in here. I kind of want to tone down these brows here because we kind of dragged them up here a little bit earlier. And I just want to make sure that I didn't go too far with it. So I'm just going to take this right there and let's just scale that down. Whoop. I want to feel it, but I don't want to have it go so far that it feels weird. I think I could maybe even open it up a little sooner, but I kind of want to keep it simple here. If anything, as it kind of comes up, like I could push those brows down a little bit more. Just a hair. Now I'm using just the global brow controls, just for the sake of cleanliness here. But we can always use the individuals to kind of push the middle in as well, which I would probably want to do at some point. Because right now it's just globally up and down, which is kind of boring. So we could do something like that. Now there was one thing I did want to fix here, which was, where was it? Oh yeah, right at the beginning. As the hand comes up here, this hand pose is not super great because of the arc that it's creating. It kind of dips in and then out again. But not only that, I'm getting a tangent with the side of his body. So I'm gonna just go, yep, right there. Maybe bring the elbow out a little bit. And that cleans up that whole arc and silhouette. Let's see here. Okay. So we've got the hand kind of in a looser grip here. This is great. This is kind of what I want more of throughout the shot is as he goes through, you see how it's a very subtle thing, but we get that hand change through there. I want to make that kind of bigger. So if he's starting his hand pose here, I can have him, instead of just sliding into the fist, I could have him kind of anticipate out and then come into a fist afterwards. So let's try to block that in just a little bit. I'm going to do it very roughly because I know we don't have too much time here. So it's going to be kind of, I want to get it into position so that tomorrow I can refine this a little bit more clearly. Is it true that the eyebrows get closer when down and more apart when they are up? Yeah. So when you bring your brows down, you can see. I'm just trying to bring my brows down. I'm not trying to pinch them. They go in. If I bring my brows out, they go out. It's, you can just look at a mirror and try it out and you'll see it. So it's just the way the muscles work. The muscles pull in the center here, which is going to pull them in together. So yeah, it is very true. So in my case, this is where what I'm doing right here is I'm just kind of blocking in the base eyebrow motion. This is not going to look great because one, I'm missing that anatomy where it pinches in the middle, and two, I could push this even further by kind of rotating it a little bit and changing the expression, or more likely what I'll end up doing is using the actual like controls here and using these along with the center ones to push an expression a little bit more than just up and down. Let's see, when you're using when you're doing ease-ins and outs, are you using the graph editor mostly or adding more frames? It's a mixture of both. Sometimes I'll use the graph editor. Other times I will put in more frames. It really depends on how many frames I have, how much of an ease in and ease out it's going to be. So there's no kind of like magic formula that I will always use this one way of doing it. It's whatever kind of works best for that moment. But I use a mixture of both. So I want his hand to kind of open up here just a little bit. So it's going to be kind of this pose. So as I do the hand pose, I just put my hand in that pose. And I want to just kind of try it out. See how it feels. And then I can just kind of look at my hand, get the angles right. And then the last joint, actually, let's open it up just a little bit more so we have a bigger contrast. Okay, and this joint. Gonna be like so. Posing hands, once you get used to it, it goes pretty quick. I see a lot of people when they start animating, they just don't pose hands because there's this, well, a justified fear of all of the controls. You look at how many controls we're dealing with right here compared to all the other parts of the body where, for example, the whole spine is 4 controls if you count the hips. Whereas the hand, which is a little thing here, we've got 3 controls per finger, so that's already 12 controls right there, plus the metacarpals, 16, plus the thumb, so that's another 19, plus the wrist, 20 controls right there, just for this one little area, compared to the entire body, which normally you'll animate with 4 controls at most. There's extra controls there, but we don't have to use them. So it's very daunting at first. But the big thing with hands, and one of the things I love about them, is that for most of us, we have reference of the hands right at our fingertips, literally. You can just put your hand in the pose and try it out, which makes it much easier to just kind of experiment and just see how it works and poses and moves right there. So what I'm looking at is I'm trying to get an arc in the fingers. So you can see if you draw a line from the fingertips, I want this kind of arc right in there. It's just going to help make that feel a little bit more dynamic. Something like that.